Good evening, and welcome to another Tuesday night on the Paranormal Lens, presented by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I'm Chad Thomas, and over on that other side is Jamie Widener. How are you doing tonight, Jamie?
Sir, I am wonderful. It is Tuesday. We're here. The waiting of all that time during the week is over. Let's get to it, right? So
Yep, we did another show this
we
week.
did. Yeah. Well, before we get to that, let's get to that, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Thanks again to Stacy Lee for inviting us on to Becoming Enchanted with the Rustic Spirit. It was an enlightening episode, I think, on the discussion that we had, and I think she did something really fun where she started with a local urban legends tale, and then that kind of seeded a little bit of the conversation, I guess. But then it kind of went from there. So
yeah, it was a great conversation. It was fun. She did an investigation with us a couple months ago, and yeah, great person. So thanks again, Stacy. Wasn't a real busy week other than that. I mean, my family had a graduation going away party for my nephew and Zoe. So we all got together at my dad's house. I know that always intrigues you, Jamie.
I like to call it a cousin corral when they all get together.
Uh-huh.
There's like 17 of them, it seems. There's not, but there's so many, and they don't get together often enough, other than birthdays and stuff like that. So
right,
this is nice to be off schedule for them.
Yep. And Ben came over for it. Yep. Something tugged on the back of my shirt when I was standing in the kitchen talking to my family.
Ooh.
So there may have been a couple things that they're starting to pick up there again. So,
yeah, well, maybe equipment will travel.
Yeah, maybe I'm just opening up my mind some more. So who knows? We'll see. But it was a good time, and we had a lot of fun.
Well, I think the Lynches said this back at the episode. It's like, we can put your dad up somewhere for a couple nights and go investigate. He won't be there. It's okay.
We'll see. Anyway,
all right.
One of these days. So
I know. No, there's no rush. It'll be there. The house will be there.
It will be. So, and I got together with another friend on Saturday and talked spiritual development and psychic development and a bunch of stuff like that. So that was fun. It was a good hour and a half conversation, and we're going to keep supporting each other through a journey that we're both going on.
Fantastic.
So that'll be good. Yep.
All right. I'm still over here being unsensitive. So
right. You heard Stacy last week, though, Jamie. You are more sensitive than you know.
All right. Well, I have watched Hallmark movies. I guess that proves it. Wait, that's not the same thing.
No.
Right.
So.
Sure.
So
we'll see. Work in progress, aren't we all?
Yep, exactly. We always are learning. So all right. Well, should we go on to a topic for tonight, Jamie?
Sure. Yeah, that's probably why we're here, right? So let's do it.
So, all right. Well, let's see. We are going to talk tonight about a place called the Saratoga County Homestead. Now, most people probably haven't heard of this place. It's a place that hides in plain sight, tucked deep in the forest of upstate New York. If you're a fan of the paranormal television, you might have caught a glimpse of it on Travel Channel's Destination Fear, or maybe you've seen it featured on Project Fear over on YouTube. But for many of us, the name means nothing until we hear the stories. It's called the Saratoga County Homestead, though some know it as the Homestead Sanatorium. Located about 15 miles west of Saratoga Springs and roughly 40 miles northwest of Albany, it sits in the quiet town of Middle Grove, New York. But even here, there's a little mystery. Depending on who you talk to, the area might also be described as Barkersville, East Galway, or Providence. It's as if the land itself refuses to be pinned down, existing somewhere between official maps and whispered memory. What is certain is its setting: remote, isolated, and swallowed by dense forest. When it was first built, that seclusion was intentional, perfect for its role as a tuberculosis sanitarium. Far from the bustle in cities, patients were brought here to rest, heal, and at times face their final days. But now, decades later, the same isolation that once promised quiet recovery only deepens the location's mystique. Abandoned and crumbling, it stands like a ghost of its former self, surrounded by shadows and stories. And tonight we're going to walk those halls, at least in our minds, and uncover the dark history and lingering legends of the Saratoga County Homestead. So let's set our course for 7239 Barkersville Road in Middle Grove, New York. The year is 1909, and the United States is in the grip of one of its deadliest public health crises, tuberculosis. Known at the time as consumption, this highly contagious disease was claiming lives at an alarming rate. As we've discussed in other episodes, modern antibiotics didn't exist yet, and the medical consensus that was that the best treatment was a regimen of fresh air, rest, and abundant sunlight. In an effort to combat the spread, the New York State Legislature mandated that every county establish hospitals or sanatoriums dedicated to treating TB patients. Saratoga County's answer to that call was the Homestead Sanatorium. The land chosen for the facility had a history of its own. It was gifted to Horace Carpentier by his father. Horace wasn't just any local landowner. He was a man of many pursuits, a lawyer by training, a fortune seeker during the California gold rush, and for a brief time, the first mayor of Oakland, California. Later, he became the president of the Overland Telegraph Company, which built the first transcontinental telegraph line in the United States, and his influence stretched far beyond business. He served on the board of trustees at Columbia University and donated over $250,000 to fund Chinese studies there, an extraordinary sum of money for the time. In his later years, Carpentier turned his attention back to this quiet stretch of upstate New York. He personally oversaw the construction of the Homestead Sanatorium, which was completed in 1914. When he passed away in 1918, his will allocated millions of dollars for its continued upkeep, a testament to how important the project was to him. The location was described at the time as a secluded, well-wooded area with sweet and wholesome air. Initially, it was a quaint wooden building that could house just 24 patients. But tuberculosis was relentless, and the demand quickly outgrew the original structure. In 1927, a separate concrete children's hospital was added to the grounds. The children's ward was said to be filled with laughter and contentment, but the men's and women's wards told a different story. The main wooden building had begun to deteriorate, creating an atmosphere far from the idyllic healing environment doctors believed was essential. In 1930, the facility's annual report pleaded with the county for funds to rebuild. Sometime between 1932 and 1936, a new brick structure was erected, the same building that still looms on the property today. It was an impressive upgrade. Decorative moldings, large marble columns, wide windows, and airy solariums designed to circulate the fresh mountain air that was thought to be vital to recovery. Now, the homestead remained a tuberculosis sanatorium for decades, until medical science finally caught up with the disease. By 1960, antibiotics like streptomycin turned TB from a near certain death sentence to a treatable illness. That year, the last tuberculosis patients were discharged. In 1961, the building took on a new role as a Saratoga County infirmary, caring for geriatric patients until 1973, when its doors were closed for good. After that, the once bustling medical facility sat silent and abandoned, slowly succumbing to time and nature. It wasn't until 2019 that the property found a new owner. Purchased at a tax auction by James Walk, the site seemed poised for a new chapter. In a Facebook post that year, Walk shared his vision of transforming the homestead into a retreat for veterans. While that dream has yet to be realized, and the building remains in need of extensive restoration, the homestead has not been entirely without purpose. Over the last several years, it has opened periodically for photography tours and paranormal investigations. None are currently listed on the official pages, but one of the most notable recent visits came from Dakota Layden of Project Fear in July of this year. He posted a solo overnight investigation of the homestead to YouTube, one more chapter in the long, eerie history of this forgotten institution. Now, we've talked about the history of the building itself, but history is more than bricks and mortar. It's the people who lived, worked, and in many cases died there. While researching the homestead, I came across a fascinating post on a website called Hub Pages. The author had managed to get their hands on a copy of the 1930 annual report submitted to the Saratoga County. In it, there's a rare glimpse into what life looked like for a patient arriving at the sanatorium. Before being admitted, patients were advised to bring specific items of clothing and basic toiletry. For summer admissions, the list included 2 suits of light underwear, 3 pairs of stockings, a bathrobe, a pair of pajamas, slippers, a pair of rubbers, likely oversized overshoes or galoshes, and 2 changes of outside wear and toilet articles. Everything had to be labeled in India ink with the patient's name. For winter, the list grew even more specific. 2 suits of woolen underwear, 3 pairs of woolen stockings, 1 heavy coat, a winter cap, a knitted helmet for outdoor sleeping, 1 pair of overshoes, 2 suits of heavy pajamas, warm slippers, a bathrobe, and toilet articles. It's a surprisingly practical detail, but it also makes you think about what awaited these patients. Long stretches of time in the cold mountain air, sometimes even sleeping outdoors as part of their treatment. The same report also gave some insights into who these patients were. Most were Catholic, American-born, single, and male. The majority came from the Saratoga area and were described as being in the retrogressive stage of tuberculosis, meaning the disease was in decline and the lesions in their lungs were shrinking. The Untapped New York website provides even more detail about the daily life at the homestead. Patients lived under a strict regimen of rest, with exercise carefully monitored. Dancing, alcohol, cigarettes, and foul language were strictly prohibited. To reduce the spread of infections, patients weren't allowed to carry handkerchiefs. Instead, each carried a sputum box, a small container for collecting phlegm, which the doctors would then test for TB. Children received their schooling on site. In warmer months, many attended classes shirtless so the fresh air could better penetrate their lungs. Rest, fresh air, and nutritious meals formed the foundation of treatment. Large chairs were placed outside for patients to bask in the sunlight, sometimes even in the colder months. I'm skeptical of claims that this happened year-round during the brutal New York winters. At its peak, the homestead could accommodate about 100 patients. And unlike many other sanatoriums of the era, I didn't find any strong evidence of chronic overcrowding or severe understaffing. The facility was more than just a hospital. It was a self-sustaining community with its own farm to supply food, a power and steam plant, and a school for the children. Its remote location made these things a necessity. There's also evidence that staff lived on site. A 1932 architectural drawing by the Alliance Insurance Company shows a substantial nurses' home, making that a very likely scenario. But not all stories from the homestead ended with recovery. Over its years of operations, records showed roughly 3,000 deaths. Only about half of these records still exist. The rest have been lost or destroyed. Missing death records always raise questions and often fuel rumors of abuse, neglect, and trauma. Some stories even claim that there is a mass grave that exists somewhere on the property for patients whose families never claimed their remains. Now, there's no documented proof of this. In fact, funeral home records from the area suggest that families did arrange proper services for their loved ones. But in the world of abandoned hospitals and whispered legends, the absence of evidence often does little to quiet a haunting story. That uncertainty, the missing patient records, the rumors of a mass grave, and thousands of deaths begin to blur the line between cold fact and chilling legend. When history falls silent, the shadows are left to speak. That raw, silent weight of the past seems to seep from every cracked wall and shadowed corner of the Saratoga County homestead. It's the kind of atmosphere that doesn't just sit quietly. it clings. And it's precisely that uneasy stillness that has drawn paranormal teams, curious travelers, and thrill seekers to its decaying halls. Like so many abandoned institutions, the homestead carries more than an echo of footsteps. The website of Abandoned New York recounts reports of sudden cold spots drifting like invisible currents through the corridor, phantom coughing reverberating in the empty wings, and shadowy figures slipping from room to room just beyond the range of a flashlight. Some visitors have claimed to be rushed by an unseen force or to feel that primal, unshakable sensation that something is following you. During Destination Fear's investigation, Dakota and his team devoted a large portion of their night to chasing the origin of one of these particular unnerving shadows. Room by room, they searched for an intruder, yet found no one. Only more silence. When Dakota returned solo for Project Fear, his device captured what he considered to be intelligent responses. While some connections felt like a stretch, there was one moment that lingered when he asked about the shadow from their previous visit. The equipment returned three chilling words: paranormal, man, and home. For some, this confirmed the long circulated belief that a former caretaker never left the building, still pacing its halls, watching over the site, and chasing people who don't belong there out. Other stories reached further back. The DUAV site tells of a nurse who may have taken her own life within the homestead's walls, yet remains bound to her post, tending to the spirits of patients who never left. There's no consensus on exactly who or what still walks the halls. These whispers persist. This isn't a place with a Hollywood-level haunting reputation, but its atmosphere does most of the work. Untapped New York likens the homestead to something pulled straight from an Edgar Allan Poe nightmare. A looming structure, its decay not just visible, but tactile, as though the past is physically pressing through the peeling paint. Beds, medical supplies, and personal belongings still linger inside, abandoned in haste when the building closed. These articles give the unsettling impression that life was interrupted mid-breath. But don't mistake its quiet for an open invitation. The Saratoga County Sheriff's Department actively patrols the property, and trespassing can earn you a very different overnight stay than what you're planning. The only safe and legal way to experience the homestead is to watch for official announcements on its Facebook page, where links to sanctioned photo tours, history walks, and occasional paranormal investigations are posted. Every account, every shadow, every unexplained sound builds on the gaps in the homestead's written history. Whether these moments are genuine hauntings or the tricks of an overactive mind in a place steeped in loss, they serve the same purpose: to lead us from the cold facts of its past into the realm where history blurs into legend, where the past doesn't just rest, it lingers. Now that's exactly where we like to be. So let me cite some sources, Jamie, and then we can discuss a little bit further. First, the Untapped Cities, Abandoned Saratoga Homestead Hospital, Discover Hub pages, Travel, Forgotten History Homestead, Facebook.com, Saratoga Homestead, DEEUAV.com, the Saratoga County Homestead, and TimesUnion.com, news, slideshows, photos from article Once Upon a Refuge. So my thought on this one is it's probably not as haunted as people want you to believe it is. You know, and I'm not saying that I don't want it to be haunted, but it doesn't feel like it's there for me. So it's got some cool history.
I'm going to disagree with that.
Oh,
Yeah, and well, okay. So you gave us a lot of data there, like with numbers and like the deaths and so forth. Like if 3,000 people passed in this facility, I can't imagine there's not some energy that's retained. Um, there were people who were passionate about the care. And I say this every week, but there's passion, there's energy,
true.
there's activity. So whether it be residual, intelligent, whatnot, but I can't imagine there's not something happening here. Now, the challenge, right? I think the big problem, even to go that far, is that it's not an active location that people can investigate on the regular.
Right.
So,
And we
uh,
know energy feeds on energy. So
yeah,
maybe I'm just feeling that because there's not a lot of information.
right. And I think
It focuses that
that's
off there. Yeah.
it's like a place gets a bad rap, when it doesn't have activity, because things aren't on demand. Even the places that are open and active for us to
Mhm.
go to. If somebody has a dull evening, for lack of a better way of saying it, or yeah, I don't want to use the term dead, but
Right. Now I know what you
yeah,
mean.
it's cliche.
Mhm.
But if something doesn't happen when they're there, they pan the place instead of praise it,
Right.
right? And people tend to listen to the negative reviews, and this is a statistic that's been in sales and marketing forever. But if you have a negative experience, you're likely to tell 7 people about that experience, where if you have a positive, you're likely to tell 2. So the odds are ever against you, should the place, whatever that is, if
Mhm.
there's something negative for that, if they did someone wrong,
Right.
more people are going to hear about it statistically, and 3 times as many, for that matter,
Hmm.
than if somebody did something right for you. So, you know, and if a place isn't available, and therefore it's not on the map for
Right.
others to know about, it just sits and goes by.
Right.
Time passes, and
And
every day that happens, every year that happens, this place gets older and older and older, and less perhaps stable. So the ownership is more reticent, and it costs something for them, right?
right.
There's a risk
Hmm.
involved in letting people like us in. So the liability side of it is steep when it's
Yeah.
an aging facility, and I don't blame them. We
Right.
have that same concern for the folks that come with us to the brewery, and it's in great shape.
Right.
It's upkept, it's maintained, it's got all the amenities. So there's always a risk. Somebody might trip and fall. It's got
Hmm.
stairs. There's all kinds of stuff that people could do.
Well, and like this picture, from what it was to what it is now,
Yeah,
it's such a shame.
that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But that's for us when we went to Tala, right?
Hmm.
We were when most of the facility is in reasonable condition. Some parts looks like, especially on the original wing, it looks brand new. But we went into the part that I don't know what to call it, but the found wing, where we had to go up and over the hump of those stairs, and then all of
Hmm.
a sudden it looked like a bomb went off. I mean, there's braces holding the walls up, exterior walls. You know,
Hmm.
it took a little bit of sliding stuff around on the floor to realize there was terrazzo underneath, this beautiful terrazzo underneath all of the stuff that had fallen from the ceiling and walls. It was just, and water everywhere,
Yep.
right? That is what happens when places are vacant, right?
Hmm.
Nature claims itself and claims its stuff back.
Hmm.
Things aren't designed to last without maintenance needs. So, I get it,
Yeah.
but this is one of those places that probably deserves some attention.
Oh, I think so, and I probably spoke hastily, and I'm sure there's things there. I mean, I guess what I was saying is it's not that big haunted place like Tala, and
Sure.
there's not. But again,
It's not on the beaten path, right?
right, and I'd love to go spend a legal day there,
Yeah.
you know.
Or a legal night for that matter.
But it's just it's a shame. And the guy who bought it, James Walk, I reached out to him and I didn't hear anything back, but which I understand.
Yeah.
Um, I was just looking for some history from him, but it's his goal to turn this into a veterans getaway is a great idea, but it's millions of dollars,
Yeah.
tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars away from that because of how much just destruction nature has done to it, and that's not even counting the vandalism and things like that. And built in the 1930s, darn well there's asbestos in there.
Oh, yeah.
So
And others, it's probably, the wiring is all gone.
hmm.
It was copper back then, so that's been stripped and stolen.
Hmm.
It's a complete gut,
Yeah.
which is really sad. I'm gonna before we get too far here, I want to catch up on some comments too. Um, yeah, Bert commented, I guess we'll need some ground penetrating radar for our road trip, or this road trip.
Uh,
And by the way, it is, from where I'm sitting right now, it is only 5.5 hours, 5 hours and 24 minutes technically from door to door for me. So
hmm.
we went further for Wilson recently, so we'll
Not out
take
of the realm.
yeah. It's a smidge above Schenectady, New York, on the far eastern side. So on that corner where Vermont comes down, so it's
Hmm.
doable. Um, Heather also, or I'm sorry, Bert also commented here with 3,000 deaths. I'm sure there is something. To the same point, I agree.
Yep.
And Heather commented that probably a lot of residual energy, but people passing in pain and way too young. Has to be some spirit still holding on to there.
Right.
Agreed again. I noted down a couple things here, and I
Hmm.
step back to the process. Um, eh, Tuberculosis facilities aren't anything new, like anything unique. They
Right.
were everywhere, right? Because tuberculosis was everywhere. It didn't spare anyone, and
Right.
some of the common things that were considered, though, and you mentioned the term fresh, sweet air, being up in the mountains there.
Mhm.
Um, there were other places we've heard of that they were along the coast, and the coastal air, the
Right.
salt air, was to give you that relief and recovery. No one knew what was going to make you better until we actually got to dedicated medication.
Right.
And then, we get past it or got around it that way. But, it was all kinds of things, taking your shirt off and going outside,
Hmm.
to letting more air in. Somehow your
What,
overgarment was going to keep you from being
what
healthy.
it,
Um,
school children taking classes with shirts off
yeah.
because that would help them.
Yeah. And I don't know what you called it, but basically a spittle bottle instead of a handkerchief. It's pretty freaking gross.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So, ugh. Um, but there was that is, if anything, the tissue, the hanky, for lack or handkerchief, whatever you want to call it, is probably more sanitary than having something you spit into and leave open. So I don't know. It's just the we've come so far
We have.
in so many things that's amazing to me.
Hmm.
Um, you also, part of the things to bring. You mentioned rubbers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I'm gonna, I'm trying not to be a 12-year-old boy here all of a
Right.
sudden.
Yeah.
It takes me to something else though, and I forget where it. I know where it is, but I forget what it is. There's a college in Minnesota every year that creates a list for their aging faculty members of lingo that doesn't mean what you think it does.
Uh-huh.
And I haven't seen this in a few years, but there was a time when one of the things that was on it was thongs,
Uh-huh.
and they're saying, well, you may think of it as a shower shoe,
Uh-huh.
right? Because that's common.
Yep.
You wear flip flops in the shower essentially, and that's really what thongs are, flip flops. But it now means something uniquely different. It's now an undergarment that's commonly worn, and it's like stuff like that. And it kind of gets posted every year as a ha moment. But this is one of those things that it triggered me on that to remember.
Hmm.
So I'm sure it's out there somewhere if you Google um, old college professor
And
stuff.
I know there's a TikTok clip going around about English versus Australian words, and
Yeah.
can I borrow your thong and your thongs? And they're like, wait, no, no, no.
You just keep them.
So yeah, so
You
but
also, well, you also said something else at the very opening, and I think this is so true for so many places that we just don't know about yet. But you use the term hiding in plain sight,
hmm
and honestly, well, consider the East Coast is our the origin of the colonization of America, right? And therefore it's the oldest thing. And we talked about this a little bit last week with Savannah. The East Coast is just more densely populated,
right.
and in that there are so many properties that are tucked away. They're trying to get away from places, so going out to a place like the homestead is up in the woods kind of thing, around out away from the town.
Hmm.
So there are facilities like this that are tucked away that we've forgotten about because they've been shuttered for so long that they have to have history. Even homes, there are homesteads out in the woods,
Hmm.
places that have just gone away, and then they're down to foundations, even if they have them. It's amazing to me. Like there are lots of places like this in
Yep.
that sense
Hmm.
that are around us that we have yet to find or explore, or and I said this in episodes in the past. People have been dying for thousands of years, right?
Yep.
So activity could be everywhere. It likely is.
Hmm.
So that's quite it was a good way to lead in to the presentation here.
So, I do want to, building a little bit more on the Project Fear thing. Dakota did have several other experiences during his solo.
Okay.
He had some. It sounded like bricks were being thrown in the hallways, and he had
Hmm.
it happen. He had it happen once when he was in the building by himself, and it scared the crap out of him. And then he had Tanner was out in the parking lot acting as security, the safety person, because yes, he was doing an investigation by himself, but you never investigate by yourself. You have somebody close by if
Yep.
you're smart. So Tanner came in, and while Tanner was there, the same thing happened again. Like just out of camera range, just out of visual range, something threw something large in the hallway, and it made a loud noise. Um, and Dakota also saw another full body shadow down the hall, and again went down, and there was nothing there, but plenty of experiences. Um, there's a lot of spirit box activity, and a lot of EVPs have been caught, but they're trying to go through all the YouTube videos to try to catch. It would take forever.
Right.
But there's definitely things out there saying there's a lot of EVPs happening there. So
Well, I want to say something here, and we have talked about how we got involved in the paranormal, right?
mhm.
And we both have a home that we grew up in that was active in some way, and that was that piqued curiosity. But I remember, if it comes to a show or a program, and Project Fear is that to me.
Mhm.
Um, I remember, I don't know how many years ago, it's been forever ago, it feels, when Ghost Adventures, those guys were new, and it was the original group, with Nick, Zach, and Aaron.
Mhm.
They were guerrilla going out to places, and
Right.
the town that they were in, and it's a very small town. The very first thing they did publicly, like they presented, isn't a show. It's more like a short film, sort of. It's a little bit longer. It would be an episode, but it's a fairly long one. They go to a cemetery in this town, and I believe it's the Goldfinch Hotel they go to, and they get locked in, as they used to get locked in every time, and someone on the outside shut the door and secured it so they couldn't just walk out. And hours go by. They're going through this dilapidated, closed down hotel, and they finally get down, I believe, to the basement. And on camera, a brick just goes from left to right across the screen, and a board falls down.
Mhm.
And they did exactly what I would do. They freaked out and they ran, right? And because you're in a basement of a building, and you can't get there's no power, there's no resources, so they boogied, they hit
Mhm.
it. And if I'm not mistaken, they had to climb out a window to get out of the building.
Okay.
They couldn't get out the door because they were locked in, literally, which is the detriment to that process,
Mhm.
especially if there's not someone waiting for you outside to let you out, right?
Mhm.
Somebody comes back at daylight kind of thing. And that, I can't forget that. It's something that could happen in an investigation. And this, to the point of investigating alone, if someone were there by themselves and that happened and one of those things hit you, and you become debilitated in some way.
Mhm.
Debilitated? That doesn't sound like the right word. But something happens to you and you can't get out physically,
Mhm.
bad things can come down to you, like
Yeah.
you could be bleeding and
I mean, even if
all
you're
kinds of risks.
if you sprain an ankle and you're on a third floor and you have to get
Yeah.
down and
Hope
stair.
there's a banister.
Well, a lot of the stairwells aren't even that. Like it's
Yeah.
piles of
Oh,
rubble.
I know.
Yeah,
Right.
just in the dark.
Yeah, it's a bad idea to investigate alone. So I appreciate the Dakota's courage there,
Mhm.
but I slightly question his decision making process.
Well, it's part of the series. They each one
Sure,
of the
I get it. I
each
get
one
it.
of the
I know
teams
what it is, right?
now. So,
And
uh,
that's cool.
but again, they have a walkie-talkie to reach the person. They're always there with somebody else on property. They have a walkie-talkie and they do check in.
Mhm. Good.
So,
I'm not panning here at all on
no,
that.
no, no.
That's their business, how they run their operation and their investigation. So,
If they want to
it
be
works.
crazy, they can be, right?
Yeah, right. And we all can be. I mean, that's you know, this feels like a good time to bring up David Dermidi, right? our guerrilla investigator.
Uh-huh.
Um, he's got tales on tales of places he's been he shouldn't have been. So, and how he got into some places, and also I
And
understand.
almost didn't get out of some
Oh,
places.
right. Or
So,
barely got out without getting bought
Well,
by somebody.
and like I said, this place is patrolled. The owner has, and on
Yeah.
their Facebook page, they have pictures of the sheriff sitting there with,
Somebody getting busted.
yes, he's getting busted.
Well,
Hey, hey.
this is what I said to Stacy last week. She was talking about going up to the place up along the river, and
Mhm,
someone from the game commission or whatever showed up, and I said,
right,
you always want to drive yourself home and not have someone drive you home,
exactly. So,
right?
hey,
So,
hey, Kyle, thanks for joining us tonight.
there you go.
So,
Yeah, but it's pretty cool,
mm,
like in the sense of that kind of activity, because that there, shows you there is something more going on, even though there's not been a lot of investigation there,
uh-huh,
and that leaves open a lot of opportunity, right?
right.
Because and like we have the privilege, and I say this all the time, we definitely have a privilege to get to go back to the same place on a regular
Hmm.
basis at Booby's Brewery, and we've had the ability therefore to use the same equipment over and over again. It's to some degree, there's probably some loss in that because it's kind of like boring, maybe,
Right,
but we're not teaching the spirits how to utilize the equipment we're bringing. I think that might be some of the case there
right,
at this place, and maybe the energy you needed to move things, is their way of communicating because they don't have a better means to.
right.
And that's pretty cool too. Like to think that there's that much something happening.
Hmm.
It certainly warrants it. So when can we go?
Well, there's nothing listed, but I'm going to keep my
Right.
I'm going to keep my eyes out because it's definitely I think it's on my, not that again, we don't have a bucket list, but it's on my list of places to try to get to. So,
All right. Well, look, we have an inn. So, Bert, I know some cops in the area, but I don't know what department this place is. We can find that out. That's
well, I
that's
mean,
doable.
I know it's the sheriffs or Saratoga County sheriffs are the ones
Okay.
because it's outside of township limits. So,
Well, it is in the name too, Saratoga County Homestead. So
yeah,
maybe that's cool.
but yeah, well,
Well, I want to step back to something else. You mentioned the overcrowding, the lack about
hmm,
overcrowding as there appeared to be in other facilities around. And I think, at least I'm going to posit this theory here, that it seems to me this was all private funding, if I heard that correctly, in the
it,
endowment of millions of dollars to maintain care and, use of facility.
it started out that way. Over time that money did get used up.
Okay.
The county was funding it. They talked about, salaries was the biggest expense,
Sure.
um,
Always is.
and then it broke it down from there. But yeah, a lot of it was, having millions of dollars donated at the beginning of a project like this. But
It's pretty
but
sweet.
but when you build a whole new facility, basically you tear down a wooden structure and build a brick. That's going to suck up
Oh, it's huge.
resources. So,
Yeah.
but yes, like overcrowding. So I'm reading Bert's comment. Um,
I don't know if I can put that up.
Overcrowding, like it's cool that this wasn't overcrowded because
Yeah, I agree.
it almost seemed like a resort.
Well,
And
that's the way Tala started.
right,
With good intention of being smaller and therefore better personalized care and intentionality in care. And then, nowhere else to go kind of kicked in.
right,
And, this is a facility therefore. And budgets started to get tighter and resources got slimmer and therefore more heads, like it's a bed count situation or
right,
head count,
right,
so you get more. And I've worked in homeless services for a long time. And a lot of times shelters get resources based on the bed stays they have. So a person being in the facility and they won't get it if they don't come.
right,
So, it's a challenge. Then there's a tipping point of just enough to not overcrowd, because you feel it's kind of like in housing, there's the standard code enforcement is 2 persons per bedroom. 3 bedroom house, there's 6 residents in the place. So if there's 7 or 8, you're over code standard, and therefore, there's challenge, there's risk. And especially when there's a fire, at 3 in the morning, and the fire department pulls up the records for the facility and expect to see 6 people coming out, and then there's more.
right,
They don't know to go get more if
right.
there are there. So
Well,
and the
and
whole other bigger conversation for another time, perhaps. But
yeah,
that's where the tipping point becomes like, okay, we're now losing, so now we have to gain. and that means more people, and then the overcrowding comes, and the lack of care starts, and the
Right,
challenge of staff comes.
just because you've added 3 beds doesn't, or 3 people doesn't mean you can add another staff person.
Right. They're just keeping it's just playing the status quo at that point, breaking even.
But luckily, like I said, this place did not seem to suffer from that.
That's cool. And it
Even though
really,
some of the pictures looked like those solariums had lots of beds, that doesn't, it just, it wasn't, they weren't sleeping 3 to a bed. Like,
right, or shifts. Yeah.
or shifts.
Right.
So, it's cool. I mean, it's an interesting facility. I found some pictures that said, children they hosted summer camps for children. So, which is sort of cool. Yeah,
This is reasonably far away from New York City, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like we are. And we have so many people come into Lancaster County here in Pennsylvania from New York that haven't seen cows before,
Mhm.
right? So, getting up to Saratoga is not that far from the city. It's not that far from Albany, for that matter, which is fairly
Right.
urban. So, maybe it's a fresh air program just to get kids out and let them
Maybe.
experience nature. That's cool. I mean, any of that's good. I mean,
Mhm.
regardless of what it was intended for, that's fantastic. Yeah.
So,
I mean, especially these days, kids don't go outside anymore, right?
mm. I wanted. Speaking of going outside
Ah,
tonight, if you get the chance to go outside, I mean, I don't know who's going to catch this tonight, but Perseid meteor showers tonight, up to 100 meters per hour in the skies over our heads. So go outside
never,
and look up.
never hurts to go out and look up once in a while. You're right.
Exactly. So,
Very cool.
so
All right, so I got no more questions or comments. So I thank you. This was rather interesting, and I think it's an opportunity,
mhm.
either for us or someone along the way, whoever might be closer or has better connections to either the ownership or the locals to get in. But if anybody's been there, let us know. I'm very curious about this. I love the opportunity to converse about it more and explore it eventually.
Yeah, and even I'd love to go do a photography day up there.
Yeah,
Just that seems like it could be an amazing experience. So,
absolutely. And just because it's daytime doesn't mean stuff's not happening. So
exactly, we've
yeah,
learned that.
many times.
So, all right. So, we want to talk about what's coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, sure, of course, of
All
course.
right.
All right. Well, next week I am going to talk about the ancient Ram Inn in the UK. Chad, I'm not going to say a whole lot about it, but just keep in mind this building is at least 800 years old.
What?
800 years old. You know, we're going to hit a 250-year anniversary for the United States or for America next year. So
Uh-huh.
gosh, 3 times older than us as a
Wow.
country. That's just one building. Welcome to Europe, right?
Hmm.
Wow. So tons of activity stuff through the years. I'm going to do my best to represent most of it. There's a lot, so I think
And
it's
you're
going
going
to
to
be.
fit it all in an hour?
I'm going to try. We'll try, or less. So, but yeah, it's shaping up to be fun. So,
Cool.
hang in there, and our friends from the UK can chip in and give us some comment there too. So,
Okay.
yeah, this is going to be an international episode. Um, Behind that, Chad's going to tackle. I keep saying tackle. I'm going to try to find better words than that. Chad's going to explore the hauntings and history of Ford's Theater, known as the site for the assassination of President Lincoln, but many other things going on there. September 2nd does bring a special guest, Dr. Jeffrey Tolbert and his research assistant, Sean Dixon from Penn State University, are going to come. And Dr. Tolbert is a professor of American Studies and Folklore. And you've heard us talk about him before, but he's been doing research for a project of his in partnership with our team at Booby's Brewery. So we are really looking forward to this opportunity to speak with him because we get a little bit of time at a time when he comes
Mhm.
and is available to join us our investigations, talk with our guests and talk with our team. So this will be a deeper dive to all of that, and I think it's going to be a fun conversation. And then the week after, we're going to also go international to the Paris catacombs. Underneath the city of lights is some darkness. So
Mhm.
we'll explore that.
You're
I'll take
doing
that.
a European tour, huh?
We're on the European tour. Might as well. We're going to take the channel over and keep going maybe after that. The week after the 16th of September, I'm likely not going to make that episode. Some things might have changed on my schedule, but I'm still traveling that day for a work event. So we have a special guest in Todd and Carmela Cocatalo, Dos Cocos, from 222 Paranormal Investigation and Research, friends of ours out in the New Jersey area who are dynamic investigators and just pretty cool people. So I'm really looking forward to that episode. If I can't make it to catch up to it, but they're going to be fun. And then speaking of going international, Chad's taking us to China. And we have another extension of tariffs. So this is a tariff-free episode. Talk about the ghosts of China's Forbidden City. And then behind that, we're coming back to the U.S. finally for an episode I'm going to do on the mysteries of Mount Shasta out on the West Coast. So some interesting things have been happening there for quite a while. So I'm curious to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. We'll go from there. And more to come after, of course. We're full in spooky season by that point. So
exactly,
more fun. And then for us, we have an investigation this week at Booby's Brewery in Mount Joy, PA. If anybody's in the South Central Pennsylvania area, want to come and do a public investigation with us, there are 6 tickets left. So they're going to go quickly the rest of the week. Don't wait if you're interested. It is a fully immersive investigation. You can use our equipment. We teach you how to do it. If you don't know, if you do, bring your own gear. But Booby's Brewery is on the National Historic Register. It is an ages-old place with, we believe, some really interesting activity happening as we get to go there regularly. So we're happy to have you if you're willing to come out and join us. And there are some accommodations there on site too. So, if you're traveling from away, not too late to make a quick weekend trip plan. We got you covered. And spooky season's fully in swing with September 27th, October 11th, October 18th. And I'll wrap November 6th into that with the end of spooky season officially, and then December. I'm sorry, is that the 8th? That's such a small font, Chad. We got to
December 6th. December 6th.
Yeah. The September one is the 8th. I'm leaning to see and I can't see it. So, oh man, I need new glasses. But wrapping up the year in December there, and we'll see what happens with next year's dates. We're still too far out to plan those, but more to come on that. But Mount Joy is more fun when you stay over. So. Welcome to join us, and accommodations are available nearby and on site. So let us know. And then let's see what else we got going on. More quick. All kinds of ways to find us. You're joining us here in this very live episode on either our YouTube or Facebook channels. But we'll be on all the streaming services tomorrow. And if you find us there, give us a like. You'll get a notification. We're here Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. Every week, but when there's 113 or so episodes in backlog now, right, Chad? Like
yeah,
I lost count, like 80. So, but there's a lot.
And this is 114. So
I was right. Holy cow! Wow, it felt right. All right, so there's a lot back there to catch up on if you're new to us, and we encourage you to drop us a line, give us a comment of some kind, so some stars up there, give us a rating. Whether you like it or not, let us know that. Either way, we're always open to feedback, and especially too if you're interested in a topic that we haven't covered yet. You see what we got coming up over the next couple of weeks. You've seen by the backlog what we've done, but we're always open for another topic of choice. We do listener submissions all the time. We'll fit it in. We self-produce. We can move our schedule around. A little time to perhaps investigate it ourselves just to make sure we know what we're talking about. And certainly we're always willing to bring people on the episode. So, talk about the thing, and it could be a personal experience for you. We'd be willing to do that, of course, too. So,
yeah, we actually those one-on-one discussions sometimes are the best episodes because you get the real gritty.
Yeah, so. It's not always a Hollywood production.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little murky and spooky, and we love that, right? That's why we're here. No, and Bert says 5 stars. Thank you. The check's in the mail, sir. So I think that kind of covers everything. We're rolling into spooky season really quickly now, Chad. So
we are. Yeah.
It's about time, right? Mm-hmm. I'm so looking forward to this weekend and getting finally back out to investigate. It feels like it's a little been a minute since we've been at the brewery. I think we probably been about 60 days since we were there. So
actually, it hasn't been that long.
It hasn't? Oh my gosh!
We were just there last month.
Was it? No way! I was there even, so I guess
you were.
It's terrible. Too many other things happening. We got to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, life is busy right now, but that's okay. So.
Yeah. Well, I apologize. Gosh, I'm going to hear it from the spirits.
Yeah, Aloise is not going to. Yeah, well.
Hopefully, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I will. I will look forward to seeing you Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I will look forward to seeing everybody else next week when we get to the Ancient Ram Inn. And as always, thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Yep. So and remember, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious, because sometimes the forgotten places are the ones that remember you the most. Good
Ha.
night.